Shalom, children. This is a very special time. We are going to be celebrating the first feast days of the year, Passover and Days of Unleavened Bread. These feast days were commanded by Yahweh a very long time ago, and He told His people to teach them to their children forever. I want to take you back to a story that you may remember from one of our lessons not too long ago. Do you remember when the Israelites were finally getting to leave Mitzrayim? They had just seen Yahweh use His mighty power to force Pharaoh into letting the Israelites go. And now it was almost time for them to leave and start the journey to their new home, the land of Canaan. But before they did that, Yahweh had some special instructions for them. He told Moshe that something was going to happen during their last night in Mitzrayim, and it was very important that they listened and obeyed and did exactly as He instructed. First, He told the Israelites that this month called Abib was to be the very first month of the year for them. Next, He told them that on the 10th day of this first month, they would get a 1-year-old male lamb from the sheep or goats to cook for the whole family. Yahweh gave them the next set of instructions. It began with how to choose the lamb. The first rule was that it had to be perfect. That means it couldn't have broken bones, be missing an eye, or have a limp, or anything like that. Now Yahweh does love all His creatures, even if they have a limp or don't look quite perfect. But He makes everything for a purpose, and for this special meal they were about to eat, He wanted them to have a perfect lamb or goat. Yahweh told them that they had to keep the animal until the 14th day of the month. Since the animals were outside all the time and could get hurt or run away, they probably needed someone to take care of that special lamb or goat, to make sure it was safe. Because the adults were so busy getting ready to leave Mitzrayim, it was probably a little boy or girl just like you. Do you think you could take good care of that lamb? Yahweh then told the Israelites how to cook the lamb. It's not that they didn't know how to cook, but for this occasion, He wanted to make sure they didn't boil it the way you would boil, say, a stew, and they definitely couldn't eat it raw. Yahweh said to roast the lamb, the whole thing, legs and head too. The whole family was told to share and eat the meal. That means everyone. Now, of course, Yahweh wouldn't want us to be wasteful. He knew that some families were small and some families were big. So He said that if a family was too small to finish off a whole lamb or goat, then they could share it with another family. Yahweh always thinks of everything, doesn't He? He also told them that just in case there was still some leftover meat, they had to burn whatever was left over by the next morning. You may wonder how you could get full on just lamb or goat, but they had other things to eat with their meal. One thing they were to eat was unleavened bread, or matzah. We eat matzah at the Seder and for 7 days after that, which is a whole week. They were also to eat bitter herbs. Maybe that didn't sound very tasty, but remember, everyone had to eat this special dinner. Now, there were more rules than just how to prepare the food and what to eat. There were also rules about things they had to do to their houses. First, after getting the lamb ready to roast, they had to take some of its blood and put it all around the door. You see, Yahweh was going to pass through the whole land as a destroyer. And when He did, all the firstborn of both humans and animals would die. But Yahweh wanted to protect his people. He knew that if the people trusted him, they would do as he said. That way, when he came to the houses, he would see the blood on their doors and just pass over their homes, and their firstborn wouldn't die. Did you hear the words, pass over? That is why we have a Passover celebration. It's so we will always remember when the destroyer came, he passed over his people, the Israelites, and they didn't die. There was also a rule about dressing in a specific way. They didn't have to wear special clothes, but they had to be ready to rush out and go on their big journey. In order to help them move faster, Yahweh told them to gird their loins. Gird their loins? That phrase may sound a bit funny. It's not one that we use nowadays, but back then, everyone wore long robes, and let me tell you, if you try to run in a long robe, you are not getting very far. Each person had to grab the back of his robe, bring it forward, and tuck it into his belt, and ta-da! They had pants. Well, sort of. It kept their legs free so they could move faster. And there was no bare feet allowed. Now I can imagine the Israelites coming home from a long day making bricks, kicking off their sandals, stretching their toes, and sitting down to chill in their favorite chair. But there was no time for chilling that night. Yahweh wanted them to be ready to go. Don't bother getting comfortable for dinner. Keep your stuff handy and be all packed and ready to hit the road. Now, let's take a look at how the moon would look on the day that the Israelites left Mitzrayim. That certainly looks like a bright, full moon, doesn't it? Yahweh thinks of everything. When the Israelites finally left Mitzrayim, they had a beautiful full moon to light up the dark nights so they could see. Now, we know what day they were to eat the meal, what they were to eat, how they were to cook the meal, how they needed to dress for the meal, and what they needed to do to protect their homes. But if they only did that meal for one day, you may wonder, why do we celebrate for a whole week? Yahweh actually answers that in the book of Deuteronomy. It says, "When your son asks you in time to come, saying, 'What is the meaning of the witness and the laws and the right ruling which Yahweh our Elohim has commanded you?' then you shall say to your son, 'We were slaves of Pharaoh in Mitzrayim, and Yahweh brought us out of Mitzrayim with a strong hand. And Yahweh sent signs and wonders, great and grievous upon Mitzrayim, upon Pharaoh, and upon all his household before our eyes. And he brought us out from there to bring us in, to give us the land of which he swore to our fathers. And Yahweh commanded us to do all these laws, to fear Yahweh, our Elohim, for our good always, to keep us alive as it is today. And it is righteousness for us when we guard to do all this command before Yahweh, our Elohim, as he has commanded us." Once they left Mitzrayim, they would be settling into their new home. When they got comfortable there, Yahweh wanted them to never forget about this day. That's why he said, "When you get to your new home every year at the same time, I want you to make a big feast and celebrate this day for 7 days every year in the same month, from the 15th day until the 21st day. And between those days, do not eat any bread with leavening in it. Only eat unleavened bread. That way you'll have time to talk to your children and teach them why we celebrate this feast. Long ago, those Israelites were anxiously waiting to be told when they could leave. They had to eat their whole meal listening to some very sad sounds going on outside. So, during this week of Passover and the days of unleavened bread, whenever you eat that piece of matzah, remember the story of the first Passover. Think how blessed we are to enjoy being with our friends and families. And most of all, that Yahweh saved his people. Well, children, we have come to the end of our story for today. So until next time, Shalom!
And they will know that we belong to Him when